Welcome back to the Bear Down Abroad with me, Ant. Here I am, out of my shed as normal, back to a normal Monday night, and we have a cracking one for you tonight. Really, really do. I'm going to start talking to NFC North. I'm not just going to talk about the Bears, we're going to talk about the Lions. You got Michael from the Lions. Maybe Bruce from the Packers might join in. None of the Vikings, they're terrified. Tony won't even show up. So normally I turn around and say, Tony, let's roll it. So instead, I'm going to say me, let's roll it. Let's get the show going, baby. Welcome back to the Bear Down Abroad podcast with me, Ant. I'm joined today by one of my good friends, and would you believe it, he's even a Lions fan. Michael, how you doing, my man?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Last night I'm even better form. I stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning, got to watch the Bears game, went to work 2 hours later, bags underneath my eyes, and it seems like my co-host Tony has joined and fell asleep or something. So you're just left with me. So we get to talk about Bears, we get to talk about Lions football. So let's start with the Lions, right? So 2 years, you were the best team in the NFC North. You could argue that there was a real opportunity you had to go and win a Super Bowl last year, and injuries, coaches, and different things got involved. Give me an outlook of what the Lions preseason was like, and what was your draft like, and what was your free agency like? What was the good moves, and what was the moves that Lions fans are scratching their head a little bit about?
Yeah, so I feel like overall in the NFC North, the theme is kind of uncertainty. Each of the four teams, even though the Lions are repeating NFC North champions, there's a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, we lost Ben Johnson. We lost Aaron Glenn to the Jets. So we have two new coordinators. Our offensive line, there's been turnover. Frank Ragnow, our all-pro center, retired. We lost Kevin Zeitler. There's a lot of uncertainty at a couple different places and within the coaching staff. Otherwise, the offseason's been pretty great. We got DJ Reed, a fantastic corner, coming to the team. We got Roy Lopez on the defensive line, add some depth. This offseason's also been a lot about healing, getting healthy. Aiden Hutchinson, who has been incredible during practices against the Dolphins. He reportedly had like 4 to 5 sacks. He looks like his old self, who was on track to become Defensive Player of the Year before his terrible injury last year. So overall, things are looking pretty good. There's still, when it comes to Lions fans and how they feel about the offseason, they still seem to not understand Brad Holmes. And I get so frustrated about this. They still don't trust Brad Holmes. They trust their own thoughts and feelings about, hey, we need to draft an edge rusher on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. That should always be the focus. We don't have it. We need to get it. And whenever he takes anybody else, even though he's probably had the best 3 years of drafting of any GM, I'd be interested to know if anybody thinks anyone's done an even better job, even Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. But people still don't trust him. So they should start. When it comes to the draft, we got more interior depth on both sides with Tate Ratledge, who some people thought we were getting him to play center. Now it looks like he will play one of the guard spots. And then we have Tyleek Williams on the defensive line, defensive interior from Ohio State. And then in the third round, a surprising move who most analysts and media experts thought he'd go somewhere in the late 100s, 170 to 210. We traded up 30 spots, 2 future round third picks, and spent a third round pick on Isaac Tesla, wide receiver from Arkansas, who most people didn't even hear about. And now he looks like Puka Nacua. I mean, he looks incredible. So we're starting to get on board with some of those moves, realizing Brad Holmes, once again, knows what he's doing more than we do. Fans still, they see the cap number for this year, and they think Brad needs to make a move. But we're negative in cap for next year. So he's going to roll over most of that cap. I'm not sure the exact number, but I think it's in the high 30s right now. If you look at just this year, we need to sign Aiden Hutchinson. We need to have money available for Kirby Joseph, for Jamison Williams. There's a lot of those moves coming up. We don't really have the money to spend, but even today, there's been lots of fans upset with Brad saying we need to go out there and trade for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Trey Henderson,
Hendrickson, and bring him in. We have some depth on the line, even though we've had a few injuries there. I just don't. He's not going to do that. Brad Holmes isn't going to do that. But outside of that, I mean, both sides of the ball look pretty strong, other than those areas that have some question marks. But I think fans overall expect us to win the NFC North again. They're excited about a deep run in the playoffs again.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, looking at the Lions, it was always, I thought Hutchinson was a massive loss for you guys. I really do. I think that was something that really kind of stood out. That was a without that loss, I think you guys get to a Super Bowl at least. And from there, something else will happen to it. From that perspective, it's interesting you mentioned that he's back now and he's back looking good. And I saw a couple of clips myself. I think he did Penny Sewell and a one-on-one, which I thought was very funny actually. Is that the missing piece, you think? Is that something, because as you said, cap space isn't there next year, you have to pay a lot of money. People talk about windows and amount of times you get a chance at doing it. Is there a thought in Detroit that this is not win or bust, but this is a really, really big opportunity for you guys to make that real push on and get towards that Super Bowl that you've been craving?
It depends who you talk to. There are a lot of fans that think this is Super Bowl or bust, that should be the expectation getting to the Super Bowl. And anything less is a failure of a season. I don't really agree with that. It's interesting that you say that. Was Aiden Hutchinson the missing piece? Because so many fans and even media members have said that Aiden Hutchinson needs a partner, that's the missing piece, that we didn't even have the missing piece. But you look at Hutchinson goes down in game 6, Lions still go 15-2. So with him, what else do they do? How far do they go? Do they beat the Commanders? I don't know. Commanders, they're on a different level. They were prepared. We weren't. We got our butts kicked. I don't think Hutchinson would have changed all of that by himself. I think we still lose that game. When it comes to the other side of him, Marcus Davenport was playing good last year until he got injured, and he gets injured every single year. I don't have to tell Vikings fans, if any of them are tuning in, they had Marcus Davenport for like 2 games a couple years ago. But there's still talks that we could bring back Zadarius Smith. We traded for him midseason last year. That was kind of our move to make up for some of the loss of Hutchinson. He played well. And I think on the other side of Hutchinson, I think he might even have a better year. I think that would be a huge move. In an affordable enough move for Brad Holmes that he could make that. I'm not sure if that will happen, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think again from an overall NFC North perspective, the one thing I will say to you, and it's just I'd like to get your opinion on it, but also want to talk about it, is that the NFC North, why I thought the Lions had a real opportunity last year that they may not have as big an opportunity this year, is the overall NFC North has got so much better. You've got Packers are always going to be the Packers, and we love Bruce to be on, but to give us the Packers side, but the Vikings definitely were very good. In my opinion, the Vikings defense is going to get even better. Some of the moves they made in the offseason. And while I get slagged all the time about off-season champions, I think the Chicago Bears have got a lot better. And I think it's something that makes the NFC more difficult for any team that wins it, because I think you win the NFC North this year with 11 wins, 12 max, because I think the teams are going to start taking wins off each other. And there's an opportunity for every single team in that division to beat each other. Therefore, it may make it more difficult to get to that 14-15 win that will get you into your home playoff, which would then get you an easier route to the Super Bowl. And what's your take on what the other teams are doing, and what do you think of what the NFC North overall power is getting?
I think you could make a case that the Bears are the only team that clearly got better on paper. I think there's a case for that. I don't see the Vikings improving to that extent. They had turnover at quarterback. They had some
retirement. Yeah, but Sam Darnold wasn't a good quarterback, man. Like, he wasn't. And they still won 15 games, whatever it was.
But it was system that he could function in. And we don't know if McCarthy can.
True, and he's a rookie, but I don't know the exact names. But the Vikings did take some decent edge rushers. I think their defense another year under our defensive coordinator will make it a little bit better. I think they still got Jones at running back. They got Justin Jefferson who should be fit. Addison once he gets back from suspension, that's going to be another year in that system. They've got a very good, Connell, a very good quarterbacks coach. So McCarthy is a good one to do it. I think the Vikings have Packers. I actually in a weird way agree with you. I think the Packers might be the one that falls down a little bit. It'll be interesting from a Bears perspective to look at the Lions this year because of your coordinator situation. We're seeing in Chicago how big a jump from Ben Johnson is, and you see it in New York with Glennon as well. I think it's going to be interesting how the Lions handle that. It's funny to me. I've seen a lot of Lions fans blaming Ben Johnson for the loss in the playoffs, but I thought it was hilarious. He didn't throw the ball, intercept, he didn't miss tackles, whatever. That's football. You win games, you lose games. But I think the NFC North is going to be a really tough division. In saying that, because it's so tough, I can see the NFC North doing really well in non-divisional games as well. So it's going to be interesting.
Sure, but look at how good the division was last year. I mean, you had the Packers making the playoffs while going 1-5 in the division. So how much better can it get compared to the rest of the NFC?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was a weird. Packers last year was a weird one. I don't rate Jordan Love. Love if Bruce was on, so he could rip me. I don't. I think he's very good at what he does, and I think he's got the most out of his talent. And it's really smart for him that he sat behind Karen for 3 years or whatever it was, so he got used to that whole situation. But I think the Packers haven't massively improved, really. But they're still the Packers. They've still got Matt LaFleur. I really think he's a very, very good head coach. I would be surprised if they fall off. The intriguing one for me, biased in my head, is Chicago. We are, as I said earlier on, we're the greatest at building us up to be the superstar team, and we won 38-0 against the Bills, second team last night. Not the third team, which I heard people saying, because when it got to the third team, our thirds are playing as well. So stop with that. But we did beat the Bills 38-0 and look very good, especially in the first quarter and second quarter. I think it's going to be intriguing. What's your take on you live in Chicago, you live close enough to the Chicago area to know what it is in the city and what their thoughts are. What's your take on where the Chicago Bears sit right now?
Like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty overall. Fans are excited, but we see this every year where Bears fans are some of the most passionate fans that you see.
That's a nice way of putting it.
And some of the most oblivious, and I'm there too. So I'm not any different. In 2008, I wrote an article about how the Detroit Lions were going to make the playoffs. They went 0-16. So all fan bases have people like that. I literally wrote it on Yahoo Sports. I don't know if you can still find it, but I wrote it. And there's Bears fans, like I listen to local sports talk radio. So I'm just south of Chicago a couple hours. Chicago sports talk radio is fantastic, although I prefer Detroit sports, obviously, from Michigan. Fans are jumping on board. I think cautiously optimistic to some extent, just because they saw last year, they saw that Caleb Williams wasn't going to be the savior immediately. There needed to be more around. There needed to be a good system. There needed to be, capable coaching, and there wasn't last year. So that will change. I do think one of the interesting things to watch over this year will be Ben Johnson's personality and how that gels with the other coaches and with the players and their personality. I do think that's something to watch. If Bears get off to a rough start, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some blow-ups, if there's players visibly upset, yelling at him. I mean, he's intense. He can be a prick. He's been called a prick. He's different than Dan Campbell. They're both very passionate. They're both smart football guys. Ben Johnson can be more prickish and demanding and straight yell, where Dan Campbell just has a different kind of approach. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but they do kind of suit different personalities. And I think that'll be interesting with Caleb Williams, with some of your other stars. there's other, Detroit Lions media who's interested in that too. Some of the beat reporters, just some of them don't think it will work out. I think it definitely could. He's obviously more than smart enough. He's an offensive genius. I think he's going to be a good head coach. But yeah, there's going to be some interesting dynamics there if Chicago starts off the season rough. I really think so.
I think I get that, and we don't know. It's first year head coach. I totally get that. I do find it funny though, because Detroit Lions media and some of the fans, I'm not saying you, not at all. Some of the fans have suddenly written Ben Johnson off as this egomaniac, this lunatic, this mad professor type. And 12 months ago, when he turned down other head coaching jobs, he was a legend and an absolute superstar, and the reason why this offense is going forward and why Jared Goff is this player and that player. It's sport. I'm sure I'd be the exact same if one of our offensive coaches, defensive coaches, Dennis Allen next year did a superstar job at Chicago and gets offered a job at Green Bay. I'm pretty sure I'd be calling Dennis Allen everything under the sun. Do you think there's a little bit of that amongst Lions fans around Ben Johnson? Or is it a case of, look, okay, he's moved to Chicago, we'd have preferred if he'd have gone somewhere else, but it is what it is?
Well, I think there's a lot of that. I think there's people bitter because he went to a division rival. Even Campbell said he didn't think he would end up there. He thought he would end up somewhere else. So I don't think Campbell's necessarily bitter about it, but lots of fans are. They turned on him. And even though most fans wanted to fire Aaron Glenn, now they love him. Oh, he's fantastic. Because he went to the Jets. Doesn't matter, out of the conference. Oh, good for him. He's going to do great. I know he's going to be a great coach. Well, Ben Johnson, the Bears, no, terrible. He was never the cause of the reason for Lions succeeding. I think there's a middle ground there. It's, Lions offense started to get better before Ben Johnson was installed as the offensive coordinator. People forget that Campbell is an offensive-minded head coach. He was calling plays, and the offense was turning around with him. He's not on the same level as an offensive play caller as Ben Johnson. I'm not saying that. But it's not like he was the only, offensive mind that we had on staff. So, yeah, I think there's a medium there. Yeah,
and it's funny purely because Chicago Bears fans have been ridiculed rightly in some scenarios. Look, I'm a person who thought Daz Newsome was going to be a Hall of Famer, so let's be honest. But it's very much, for me, I think it's interesting that from a Bears perspective, we've seen coaching that's on a different level to what I've seen over the last two shit mats, as I call them. So we finally got a head coach that, can be demanding. What I think I like about Ben Johnson is that he's no loyalty to any of the players. It's almost like we saw it last week when we saw undrafted free agent Theo Benedek get first round snaps at left tackle, even though he spent a second round pick on Ozzie Trapillo, and he's got Braxton Jones there. And then he went back to Braxton Jones last night, gave Braxton Jones the opportunity, and suddenly Ozzie Trapillo was back at right tackle, putting pressure on the Darnell Wright, for example. And he's got no loyalty. So if Caleb isn't performing, I'm pretty confident that Caleb will be out the door without a goodbye, and that'll be it. I think what interesting is, and I get your point, I would say this about nearly every single head coach, there's a certain point where players turn, because it's never the professional sports person's fault. I'll give you an example. Lions have very, very, very difficult first 6 games. If the Lions lose 5 of those 6, for example, you're not telling me that some of the Lions players won't be screaming at the sideline saying we miss we want Dan Campbell, or we miss our coordinators, and it's our coordinators, because they don't want the blame to go on them. That's the way professional sports people think. And no matter how loyal people think they are towards their head coach, that changes really quickly when the temperature comes onto them. Going into that, Lions actually do have a pretty tough start to the schedule. What's your if we look at the first 6 games, what's your outline thinking of the Lions? How much the Lions have to win? What's the number in your head after 6 games that you feel you're comfortable where the Lions are going?
With Dan Campbell as a coach, I mean, 1, 2. We saw, to your point, in 2022, the Lions lost. They were 1-6 and turned things around.
But there wasn't pressure then, man. But there wasn't pressure then. No one expected the Lions to be that good. They knew they were coming, but not that season.
There was pressure not to be garbage. I mean, there wasn't pressure to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
That's my point. That suddenly if they go from winning winning the games they won last year. I'm not saying they will, by the way. I still think the Leeds Red Lions are the favourites to win the division. Don't get me wrong. I just think that pressure is an interesting one in sport because now Dan Campbell has now got to really go and prove himself again almost. That it's that level of maybe not in Detroit, but definitely probably outside the media. And that may fuel him. That may be what he needs to go and prove a point. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, 3-3, I'd be fine with that. I would expect 4-2, but ending out 500 the first 6, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Unless we're suffering massive injuries, which is very possible. That happened last year. I wouldn't be too concerned with early losses at all. Yeah. And it will take some time for us to get our groove, I think, on offense and defense. We switched over both coordinators. There was massive turnover there. I don't expect things to be extremely smooth coming right out of the gate. And that could hurt us when it comes time to talk about who's going to win the division because we start with 2 division games. So it will be interesting to see. I think it's very important to split the first 2 at least. Other than that, as far as the first 6, I mean, going 3-3, even 2-4, I'm not going to think the season's over. It will suck, but I don't think the season's over.
Where do you see the weaknesses? First of all, where's the big strength of the Lions? What's the offensive line still that number one, even though you lost your center? Is that still the core of what that whole team is about?
Not in my mind. I don't think the offensive line is our strength overall anymore. I would say it's just overall depth. I mean, you look at the 53-man, and it's hard to see any players that's not going to start somewhere else, except for those guys who are just depth pieces. Like Dan Skipper isn't going to start at left tackle for another team, but almost everybody else, you could see him starting for another NFL team. I mean, this roster there's going to be some cuts during the preseason still that fans are going to be upset about. That they're going to get claimed immediately. We have from UDFAs to guys who have been on the roster for several years. I mean, there's going to be some surprise cuts that other teams are going to benefit from because this roster is so freaking packed. I mean, it is insane. Yeah, as far as like a core strength, I think it's depth in numbers. I don't know if I can point to one specific position group. I mean, running backs are fantastic. Wide receivers are great. Offensive line is still solid. Do I expect them to they might not even finish in the top 10 this year. And I hate to say that. That might be blasphemy as a Lions fan because a lot of fans do expect us still to be top 5, top 3 in offensive line. You can't just lose an all-pro center and not miss them. You can't lose an all-pro left guard and not miss that. And Zeitler, it's going to hurt. And we're replacing them with rookies and depth pieces. There's, we still have Sewell. We still have Decker. They're fantastic. Sewell, for my money, is the best offensive lineman in the game. But you need that interior. Pressure comes up the middle. Goff is going to struggle. So that is a concern for me.
Let's move on to Jared Goff. Jared Goff fascinates me. All right, so he fascinates me. I do not rate him as a quarterback, and yet he goes and wins games all the time. I do not rate him as a quarterback, and then you look at his quarterback rating, and it's massive. I do not rate him as a quarterback, and then he does something sensational to win you games later on. And then when I start rating him as a quarterback, he then goes and throws unbelievably bad interceptions in the playoff game. And it's that level of Jekyll and Hyde with him that I thought he was look, he's won 15 games, whatever it was he won last year. Call a spade. He's been to the Super Bowl. Probably could have gone last year. It's not like some bum I'm talking about here. But there is something polarizing about Jared Goff. I'm pretty stupid question asking you this, but what's your take on what Jared Goff is right now, and how important is he to the Lions? And if you could swap him with another quarterback, would you?
I mean, yes. You give me Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to take him. Lamar Jackson, I'm going to take him. But there's probably only 3, 4,
Josh
5
Allen.
that I would possibly take over. Did you say what about Caleb?
No, Josh Allen.
Oh, yes, Josh Allen. I thought you said what about Caleb? I wouldn't at this point. That would be a great question. I wouldn't at this point. I think he's polarizing because there's not one thing that stands out to most people. He doesn't have the rocket arm. He doesn't have a set of wheels. He can't run, to save his life. There's not one thing, he has high football IQ, but still, yeah, he gets stuck in those patterns where he'll have a 5 turnover game and they'll still win. I mean, against Houston last year, that was insane. And I would hope that's not going to happen again as far as the 5 interceptions. But yeah, I think it's because there's not one thing that most of us fans can latch on to saying, he's one of the best in the league at this specific thing. He's just better than most quarterbacks at most things other than running. And I think that's what helps him stand out. He's consistent. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's even keel. He's kind of like that airline pilot who, even when there's some turbulence, he's not going to freak out. He's not going to get too high. He's not going to get too low. And I think that helps everyone around him. He's also been surrounded by fantastic weapons. I'm not saying he's not very skilled, but building the full offense around him to work with him has definitely paid off.
Yeah, I think that was the part that I find interesting. You mentioned that your offensive line might be taking a little step backwards, and I think Penisula, I agree with you. I think Penisula is right up there as the best offensive lineman in the game. I think anyone that says different is a bit of an idiot. I agree Decker is very, very good. But as you rightly pointed out, there's little cracks appearing in that offensive line, and you haven't got the money, or you haven't got the you haven't got the draft position or all those things. The center retiring is just an absolute nightmare for Lions fans, in my opinion, because that was the piece that solidified that. Jared Goff will come under a little bit more pressure. He just naturally will. But he still, as you said, the weapons that he has, he's still got the running back room, which I think is almost second to none. I really do, for how we want to play. But then he's got a brand new offensive coordinator. So let's talk to me a little bit, because Bears fans, we don't really know anything about this new offensive coordinator. We don't really know what he's about, what it is he does, where is he from, because it's gone from Ben Johnson, where we all have him as the new Jesus, to literally this guy coming into line. So tell us a little bit about that. What's he like?
Yeah, so John Moore, he's kind of a question for us as well. So he was a part of the staff several years ago. He helped set up the offense. He went to the Jets. He was offensive coordinator when they had just a terrible team and a terrible offense, and pretty much refused to run the ball. And he took a lot of deep shots. They just looked terrible. They also didn't have great running backs. So there's a lot of questions as far as what is he going to bring? Is he actually a good offensive coordinator or not? He's a big question mark. I think what I've heard from him, he said, we've had a great offense. I'm not going to come in here and try to change everything. So he's not someone that's going to try to, innovate around what Ben Johnson was doing. He's going to stick to that and do a lot of the same things, a lot of the things that worked. I would expect less, fourth down calls, less wide receiver passes, some of the trick plays. I wouldn't expect as much of that. But I would expect a lot of the same. It will be really interesting to see how he adjusts over time, the in-game changes on the fly, if he'll do the same that Ben has done in the past, or, who knows? It's kind of a wild card. So even us, we don't know a lot about John Morton, other than he was part of the staff before. He works really well with Dan Campbell, and he's not going to try to reinvent the wheel here. He's going to mostly, at least he says, stick with what has been working.
We'll talk about stuff that sticks with what's working, and annoyingly so, right? We're going to be joined by a Green Bay Packer fan, the first ever Green Bay Packer fan on my show. And I'm delighted to welcome Bruce. How you doing, my man?
Hey, how you doing, my friend? I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I had a little family emergency as a girl dad. Stuff comes through, but thank you for having me on, man. I'm really excited to talk a little bit of NFC North with you guys. I have been listening to you. I love it.
Well, first of all, as a girl dad myself, I fully understand your pain. My girl dad is nearly 3. Or girl daughter is nearly 3, and she's the boss of everything I do, literally in every way. And all she needs to do is look at me, and I'm done. So I fully get it, man. If she tells me to go running in the snow, I'd be gone. First of all, tell us about the Green Bay Packers offseason. What was it? Please say it was terrible. Please say everyone had a nightmare and you're terrified and you're going to lose every game this year. Tell me what's going on in Green Bay.
I'm not the negative fan, nor am I the overly zealous, everything is great fan. I don't believe in that. I like to enjoy the ride, just take things as is. This is preseason. I think for all of us, of course, I got on Twitter and slammed the Lions for 3 turnovers in the first 3 drives, and then next thing you know, we're not doing anything either. I think it's more evaluation of depth at this point, and the biggest concern for me with this team is depth. I think we look very good on paper initially coming in with our starters, but the biggest issue that I'm looking at is if one of those guys goes down. That's where the preseason comes in to take a look at that depth, especially for us on the defensive line. Obviously, our DB position, pretty stacked at safety, but I think kind of in the middle of that defense, what do we have? Edgerrin Cooper looks like a stud moving into his second year, but ultimately it's what's behind him, what's on the slide. Quay Walker, Wyatt, all of these other guys that are coming in and should be third year, fourth year starters now. It's like, what are you guys doing? And I think that's really how I look at the preseason. Outside of, I'd say maybe on the offensive side, I mean, Watson's going to be back, looks like sometime mid October, but you've got Dobbs, who's always solid, but we just have a bunch of twos and not really that solid number one. So it's how are these guys going to perform? So a lot of me for the offseason is what are those rotational pieces going to look like? Who's going to be really contributing? Like Sorrell was one of those guys on the defensive line that was coming in playing really well. He just got injured, might start on the IR designated to return in 4 weeks, things like that. So all I look at in the offseason for the Packers is how does the depth piece look? And secondly, can we come out without injuries? Jordan Love, non-throwing hand injury on his thumb, things like that. Jaden Reed, hamstring. I mean, the list goes on, but every team deals with that. And I think it's a microcosm of the rest of the season where you're going to go through injuries, and those teams that are there competing at the end are the ones that have that depth. So it's not all sunshine and roses. I mean, I think Golden looks legit at this point. I've been trying to temper expectations, but he just looks like he's on another level, man. So that's kind of what you're looking at is, are these guys really ready to contribute year one in one way or another?
Yeah, Golden annoyingly looks very good. Without a shadow of a doubt, I think that kid has a real potential to be something decent. It's just whether Green Bay have, as you rightly said, the depth, but also whether they have that Green Bay toughness, and that's the question I would ask you around Jordan Love. Do you believe in Jordan Love? Do you believe that he has that ability to go and win you big games, tight games? That, let's be honest, your 2 previous quarterbacks who I hated with every bone in my body, but you couldn't take away from the fact that they had this ability to win games almost on their own with special plays and special moments. Do you see that in Jordan Love?
So I think with Jordan, the biggest issue that I have with him, and I do believe in him, is, the difference between a good player, a serviceable player, especially at the quarterback position, I think is consistency. And that's something he hasn't shown. His first year full starting, obviously he had some injuries, which happens. All players have injuries, but he came back world on fire the last 8 games of that first season and kind of gave us a glimpse. That didn't carry over into the next season. And of course, the turf, when we played in Brazil, didn't help, right? I mean, I think a lot of it had to do that. Once again, he was injured and not fully healthy. But when you do his splits in terms of healthy versus coming off of injury, the splits show that he's pretty – he has the tools and has everything available. But with any player at any level, especially at the quarterback position, I'm expecting to see a little bit more consistency out of him this year before I dub him not the next. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's definitely not a Brett Favre. He's not in that conversation the way a lot of people like to talk about it. But there's also that expectation that he's trying to follow. And it's really hard for especially Packer fans, like you're just saying it right now, man. It's been 33. It was 33 years of just Hall of Fame play. So there's going to be a drop off. He's definitely not there, but the lack of consistency from him on a game-to-game basis or a drive-to-drive basis is where I kind of pause a little bit with him. But I do believe he has all the tools. Just can he put it together consistently?
Michael, your take on the Packers. Where are they sitting right now? Actually, here's a question for you. So everyone knows the rivalry between Green Bay and Chicago, and it's been a very one-sided rivalry until the very last game of the season. Hilarious. But Michael, where's the rivalry with Detroit? What's the team that I know you live near Chicago, so you might be a bit biased on the fact you want to beat the Bears, but over the whole, if you put all the Lions fans together, what's the team that you enjoy beating the most?
Ooh. I think it's still the Packers. There's
a question for me or for him?
Oh, that's for Michael. Sorry, I was going to ask Michael from the Lions. So I'm going to get to you in a minute, Bruce. So I have a feeling I know the answer to yours, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's still the
while
Packers.
he's kind of popping back on a little bit, it looks like his internet's a little bit, it's a little bit slow like the Lions are. No, I'm just kidding. It's I think from a rivalry standpoint, Bears definitely enjoyable. It's been so long, and it's generally not been the rivalry that it has been. My brother's a Bears fan. My dad's from Chicago, so there's a little bit more oomph because I get to talk smack to direct people. But quite honestly, and the Lions have always been really competitive. It's even when they in their down years, there's always splitting games, that type of stuff. So it's always been really consistent. The Vikings are the team that I cannot just. I don't know if I can curse or not, but
Walk away, bro.
fuck the Vikings, man. That's all I have to say.
I'm clipping that bit. Michael, you were going to say the Packers, and then he interrupted you. You're definitely going to say the Packers now.
Yeah, I think it's still fans enjoy beating the Packers the most, and I mean we've done it a lot lately, like 5 out of the last 6 or something. I mean Packers have had a lot of hard times with us, so yeah, I think it's still the Packers.
Yes, he's weird, right? So, Bruce, you're not going to like this. I live in Sweden, right, which is Viking country, literally, actual Vikings, like at my door, right? I know, I fear for me. But, like, for me, Minnesota Vikings were almost this, like, meh team. They were like, meh, they're grand. Like, they don't really matter. They're not going to do that. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're not going to get involved. They're not going to do anything like that. Green Bay for me was always the one. I refer to Aaron Rodgers as Karen just because I think it's fun, but they were the team. They were the linchpins. And in a big sport over here is football or soccer over here. And Manchester United, when I was growing up, were always winning, so I hated them. So I wanted to beat them more than anybody else because my friends supported Manchester United, etc. And I think there's a little bit of that with Green Bay. And I think this year I've seen a little bit of an opportunity in taking on Green Bay, which it's the first time in probably a long time of me watching Bears football where I've gone, oh, there's a chance here. And with the Lions, for me, it's a little bit different because I felt a bit salty because Montgomery went there. I liked Montgomery, and then he makes a comment in his first press conference or his first comment in Detroit where he wants to beat Chicago more than anything else. And he held up the Chicago sign, and that got me a bit salty. Then some Lions fans got on top of me on Twitter, which is also entertaining. So I find those two as the interesting picks. But what I really want to get away from in a Chicago-based perspective is the amount of fans I've seen who just want to beat the Packers. Just beat the Packers. Lose every other match, but just beat the Packers. And that for me is the most, like, I'd prefer, if we could win the NFC North somehow by losing every single game in the NFC North, which the Packers nearly did last year, if we could do that, I'd be happy. I genuinely would be happy. Just as long as we win more games than we lose and we look like we're progressing. But it makes the overall division fascinating because of the talent of it. Bruce, I haven't got a chance to ask you this. What do you think of the NFC North? What's your overall talk going into the season and the overall division?
100%, no doubt, hardest division in the NFC. In terms of the AFC, maybe the Ravens, kind of that AFC North division might have something to say about best division in football. But quite honestly, I mean, when you look at Vikings, Lions last year, Packers, three teams that made the playoffs, right? I mean, it wasn't even close. And it's going to continue to happen. And if the Bears can if Caleb can be a serviceable quarterback, which at this point I don't know, I think you guys probably should have kept Fields and probably built that better team around him, quite honestly, and use some of that draft capital to build up your trenches and things like that. But this division is legit, man. The NFC North is definitely a treacherous road. People, when they see us on the schedule, don't necessarily, it's not automatic win type of division, I think. And we do beat each other up quite a bit, it seems like. I mean, we got our asses handed to you by pretty much everybody in the division. I mean, we went 1-6 last year, or 1-5 last year in the division. So Matt LaFleur was asked about that, and obviously paramount is winning your division before you want to get out and try to do anything else, especially with making the playoffs, regardless of what your record is, and it makes it a lot harder. But I think on a day in, day out basis, 100%, I think the NFC North is, I would argue, probably the best division in football right now.
Michael, before I go to you, Bruce brought up the F word. Right, and it's a dangerous word. And I thank God that my co-host Tony is not here, because if Tony heard what Bruce just said about keeping Fields and not taking Caleb, I think he might have flown over to wherever Bruce is and find him. I get the overall conception of where everyone is, and I do like the fact that you said about where the Bears are sitting, and if there's a serviceable quarterback in Caleb, I personally think there is, but I get it because he's not proven that. And yes, he was good. I think what was unfair on Caleb Williams personally is everyone thought he had a bad year last year. I don't think he had a bad year last year. He had an awful head coach. He had a pathetic offensive coordinator, pathetic, and he had some players who didn't deserve to play for my local team in the park. It's on him now. He's got weapons. He's got an inside offensive line that looks decent. He's got a defensive line that looks decent. He's got a coaching staff that looks very, very good on paper. Got all those things together. So yeah, this is a very important year for him to go and show it. Michael, you're taking the NFC North. Where do you think it is sitting at the moment?
Well, let me touch on some of that for a second here. Bears definitely have a serviceable quarterback, but his last name's Bajan.
What? Jesus Christ, he hit the floor.
He's not better than Caleb Williams. I'm just saying he's serviceable. He looked fantastic last night. He has played well. I think he is serviceable. Caleb has the high ceiling. He could be a star. I haven't seen it yet either. I agree with Bruce. I haven't seen it. I think that ceiling is still there. I think even on his worst day, he's a better quarterback for the Bears than Fields is. Fields is struggling right now. Yeah, the Jets are bad, but I wouldn't wish that on the Bears right now to bring Fields back. At the time, I thought it made a lot more sense for them to keep Fields, keep that draft capital, and build around him. Now I do think they made the right move. But as far as NFC North, probably the best division in football. I think it'd be hard to put another division ahead of them. I do think there's a lot of uncertainty in the division as a whole, with the Lions losing coordinators, Bears, new coaches, new offense, new offensive line pieces, Vikings, new quarterback. Green Bay, can they improve from being fourth in the division last year with a 1-5 record? Do they have any running back depth? How are the corners going to look? There's a lot of questions for every team. So I still think anything could happen. I think the most likely result is Lions win for the third time in a row. But I do think, there's reasons to hope for every fan base in our division.
Bruce, we were let down by a Vikings fan who was going to join us as well. So I'm going to give you this opportunity to absolutely hammer them, right? So work away, my man. What's the thoughts you have on Vikings this year, and what's your expectations for them?
It's not even hammering so much, and I'll have some questions, kind of what you guys are bringing up in terms of the question marks around each team. JJ is a rookie quarterback. What do you expect him to do? I know he looks good in preseason. That's also against 2s and 3s and not a legit defense. You're looking at, he probably has the best situation around him team-wise out of anybody in the division in terms of a complete team, I believe, which is why they did so well with Sam Darnold, right? Like they made Sam Darnold look like actual.
I love the fact you laughed. I love the way you laughed before you said the word Sam Darnold. Loved it. Sorry, go on.
That's smoke and mirrors, man. And then with the Lions, I think they're underplaying how much the losing the coordinators has to do with where they're going to be. I understand. And look, Hutch is coming back, so their defense is going to be decent. They did nothing to address the secondary with any player that's going to really change anything. So they're going to have to score 35, 40 points again, right? With a very good defense. I'd say a top 5 defense in the Vikings. I'd say the Bears last year, by DVOA and every single stat on the defensive front. Hafley actually got some head coaching interviews last year. Our defense is probably going to step up regardless of where we are. I think the defensive line and our coaching changes there are going to help that. and those questions. Now, and with the Bears, the one thing that I think always has happened with the Bears in my lifetime is this. You either have a fantastic offense or a fantastic defense. You've never been able to put two together outside of 1985 and 2000 or 2001 when you guys made it to the Super Bowl against the Ravens. Every other year it's been one or the other, one or the other. And I just, you've put a lot of working and new pieces in there, but are they going to live up? Because you've paid a couple people that when you look at their PFF grades and you look at their different grades, they haven't necessarily been world beaters. And a lot of it is maybe some name recognition and things like that, but they're not that top echelon type of players. And it's who's going to show up, right? Because I think the issue on the offensive side is you do have the weapons. I mean, you have DJ Moore, you have Dunze, you have the weapons around him to help him. I think the problem with Caleb that I see, and this is not, it's not a criticism because we need to see it in real game time, but everything I've seen from him is he has trouble processing the game quickly, just like Fields did. So he's got all the tools and the ceiling's there, but can he get this and process the game? And that's where Ben Johnson comes in. But if you don't have somebody that can run the plays, you're going to have to dumb down the playbook. So are the Bears going to be able to put together a top 10, top 15 defense and maybe a top 15, top 20 offense to start competing with the likes of the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers? That's kind of where I am with that.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you have to show it in paper, and Michael, I'll let you jump in a second. But from my perspective, the Bears weren't far away last year. They were in a weird way with a horrendous coaching ticket. We should have beaten the Packers at home. We should have done the double over the Packers. We gave the Lions a real game, and we went to overtime with the Vikings. And some of those, like the Lions one, where Matt Eberflus took 15 minutes to call a timeout in the last 20 seconds of a game. I wouldn't expect my 5-year-old to not be able to like at least call a timeout in a normal adult way. But it's an interesting question because Chicago never showed that. And I think rightly, and we say on this show, we say in everything, you got to show it in game day. And yeah, there's a lot of really good weapons there. I really like Loveland. I really like Komet. Really like Burden taken there. I love the idea of putting money on Joe Toomey, on Dahlman, on the inside offensive line. I love the pick of Jarrett. I love the pickup. I think Andrew Billings is fit, which is very, very big for this team off our defensively. All the pieces are there. I even like Swift, even though I know Michael probably chose eyes to heaven. But it's more a case of I really like the pieces that are being put together, and I think the coaching ticket are there. They've now got to go and prove it. And I think that's really interesting. We have a really tough start to our season. We got Minnesota on a Monday Night Football, which is not who you want to play first up because you don't really get to look at JJ McCarthy. So you're going in there very, very blind. And then we go to Detroit week 2, which I think they'll be looking for blood because it's Ben Johnson going back into Detroit and all the feelings that are there. So Chicago lose those first 2 games. Suddenly it's a different conversation. And then there's real pressure coming on a first-year head coach. So that's something that is there. On the flip side of that, they win those 2 first games against divisional rivals. And now you're talking about lads are already on the plane to a Super Bowl. And a city like Chicago can drag you to everything. Michael, what's your take on what everything looks like from outside of not just the NFC North, but we're going to have a little look about where you predict. You're going to give an idea of what it will be, but where are you going to be predicting an idea of what the division's going to look like overall?
Yeah, so to Bruce's comment about the secondary, I mean, the secondary probably is the Lions' strength. They did add the number 1 free agent corner in DJ Reed. We have, all-pro Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. Terrion Arnold's coming in his second year. Amik Robertson looked fantastic last year. I mean, our secondary is a strength, and possibly the best secondary in the division. As far as like where I view the Lions as a whole or just the division as a whole?
The overall division.
I still think it's the best in the NFL. I think anybody who wins the division has a chance to go up against the Eagles in the NFC Championship. I think it'd be hard to see any of the other teams make it to the Super Bowl. There's probably some bias at play. I just think there are too many question marks with maybe all of our teams to really go at and beat Philadelphia, but we'll see.
Bruce, what's your expectation on the Packers? Before we get into who you're going to predict finishes where, what's your take on the Packers season? What's a good season for you for Green Bay, other than obviously winning a Super Bowl? What's a good season for Green Bay with this team?
Kind of the same. Obviously, making the playoffs. A good season is being in that wild card spot. Above expectation for me is actually winning the division. I also it can be anybody's division, but right now with so many question marks again, like we've got Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, like running back wise. Um, and the problem is that Banakanda, the rookie we brought in, has been okay. But now Marshawn Lloyd, once again, his entire career, is now injured again. So the depth at running back, I mean, Josh Jacobs, as much as he's a workhorse, we're going to want to run the ball quite a bit. And relying on that, if I can see them have 1,000-yard rusher, we're not going to have any 1,000-yard wide receivers, I don't think. Probably in somewhere in the 700 to like 900 range, maybe two guys, kind of spread the ball around quite a bit. Tucker Kraft, 11-5, probably. Wild card, maybe. I mean, is good. Anything below that, they probably didn't meet expectations because, luckily, our pass rush up until now, which was something that we thought was going to be lacking coming into the season, has really, we've had a lot of these younger guys step up and really start. Van Ness is starting to show a little bit of his ceiling, and it might help protect the back end. And to be honest with you, we have the same back end that we did last year. Jair Alexander hasn't been available for 3 years. Like everybody still thinks Pro Bowl Jair. Jair has not been available for us in 3 years, outside of a handful of games here and there. And yeah, when he's on the field, he was great, but he's just readily not available. His contract speaks to that, right? It's like it's a $3 million contract, really not even guaranteed. So if we can hold up and our defense is top 10 again, and Jordan Love can stay healthy, I think 11-5 is very doable and something just let's get into the dance, right? And then you never know what happens week to week.
Michael, what's your take on the Lions? What's the Lions prediction for you for wins and losses?
I'm usually a little lower than what they end up being, so I'll say 12-5. I'll stick with that. It is a tough division. We will lose some games. There is a learning curve with the new coordinators. I do expect the defense to come out really strong. Shepard's a good coach. This defense has actually been dominating the offense in drills in the preseason. It's been looking fantastic. If Hutch can stay healthy, if we can get any pressure on the other side with Marcus Davenport or whatever warm body we put on the other side of him, I think we're going to be in a really good place. So 12-5 would be my prediction. And going to the NFC Championship game. Don't know what will happen when we get there, but that would be my prediction.
I think we're going to do a prediction show next week, Tony, myself, but I'm going to probably, I think I have the Bears down to win around 9-10 games. I think that would be a really good season for Chicago, what they're getting, and it would be that stretch on from where we potentially would be, and you never know, you might win a couple that you don't expect. Right, last one before we let you go. I'm going to start this time with Bruce. Give us a prediction of the NFC. Who's going to finish top, second, third, and fourth?
Overall, a little bit of a hot take here. The Eagles are not, I know they're an overall really good team, but so are the Vikings, so are the Lions, so are the Packers. I think Atlanta is going to surprise a lot of people this year. Penix and Cousins, right? Like you've got two guys in there that can really, I think Cousins is probably going to hold down the fort, and we'll probably bring Penix in, who's looked pretty good. First seed, you're probably going to get two out of the NFC East, and it's not going to be Dallas. Dallas is terrible, and they're just a cluster. It's going to be one of Washington or the Eagles, and I think Washington's going to give the Eagles a little bit of a run for their money. They've actually built that team to compete against the Eagles. You look at how the Lions played and we played, and it was just two mistakes away. We played the Eagles tough, and it was week one on a sloppy field. That was their worst graded game of the season. They keep bringing it up all the time. And again, in the playoffs, I mean, we took them to the brink. And so it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the Eagles one. I think they're going to be up in that area, but I think the number one seed is going to come out of the North. And it's just a matter of which one of those comes in. I think the Eagles would be a definite two. And then you're looking at probably Atlanta winning the South. Then you'll have Tampa in there as well, obviously. And then, man, after that, it's just it's going to be a crapshoot, right? At that point, you look at the rest of the divisions and what's going on, and I just don't feel comfortable with outside of really competitive teams that have a chance at anything. I'm thinking the Eagles, Washington, the three NFC North teams again, and then the rest of it's going to be a mishmash of let's see what happens. Tampa will be in there, kind of the same guys, and obviously that rotation at the bottom. But I don't think the Eagles are going to be, not that they're not going to be good. They're going to win 10 or 11 games. They're not going to run away with it the way they did before. I generally think that it's going to be Lions, Vikings, or Packers, whoever that team that's really, really hitting on all cylinders towards the end of the year and coming into the.
Bruce went. I still there, man. Yeah, I get it totally. Michael, from your side, the NFC is an overall entity. I know we spoke a little at the start about where you think the Eagles are going to be.
There we
You
go.
still think the Eagles are the team to beat in the overall division?
I think so. Unless they suffer massive injuries, it's hard to think anything will change with that. Yeah, I mean, they have so many young defensive pieces that are improving. Their secondary, their defensive line, which is just stacked. They can lose pieces and still be even better the next year. It's hard to see them fading off. It's hard to see them only winning 11 or 12. That might be what it turns out to be, but that's hard seeing for me. As far as our division, NFC North, I would say Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. I do think say what you want about Sam Darnold. He fit that system. I think JJ McCarthy's going to struggle. As far as hot takes are concerned, I have two hot takes. One, related this year, I think the Lions will have the best offense and defense and special teams in the division. My second one, and this you might want to bookmark, you can make fun of me in several years. Isaac Tesla will have more career receiving yards and touchdowns than Luther Burden and Matthew Golden.
I will turn around to you right now, and I will tell. Let's put it now on 56 minutes. I will say that a Chicago Bears receiver, right? So the combination of your top three receivers, you can pick three from the Packers, you can pick three from the Lions, you can pick three from the Vikings even, pick three from the Bears. I'm going to go the Bears wide receivers will have more yards than all the rest of the division will. Very, very confident of that. Why? Because I think there's so many weapons to it. What's your hot take, Bruce? What's the Packers' hot take? Are you gonna Jordan Love is the third coming of
the Lions
quarterback
will
skills?
not have the best defense in the division. I believe that the Packers are going to be the best defense in the division and probably top 5. And to go hot takey, probably a top 3 defense in just across the entire NFL. I genuinely believe in this defense and Halfley putting something together that's really special. He's drafting his players towards what he wants finally this year, and you start seeing those pieces. There's guys that, Clark is now going to be playing more of a nose, as so putting guys in those positions where they can succeed came out last year, and I have a feeling they're going to come out of guns a-blazing. This defense is going to carry this team the first few weeks while the offense kind of figures itself out a little bit again for like the third year in a row. But I do believe that the Packers are going to have the best defense in the division for sure, and probably top 5, maybe top 3 defense in the league.
I feel so sorry for you. Your offense isn't performing. My God, how many years have you guys had this?
Yeah, I know. 23.8 points per game is terrible. 23.8 points per game is terrible.
Well, welcome to my life, where I have to get up at 3:00 in the morning to watch the Bears lose by around 40 to Kansas City, and then get back up the week later to score 3 points and listen to shit Matt talk crap for 2 hours in a press conference.
That's next level fandom right there, man. If you be honest, those guys over in the UK, when I had my podcast, those guys were up at 1 a.m. Australia was another one that was just like, "What are you guys doing?" Like, I could do it. I'd probably just hit record and wake up early and just stay off socials.
Well, how bad I was! I stayed up last night to watch a preseason game. I was still there in the fourth quarter, not knowing who was even on the offensive line. I didn't have a clue who some of the players like. So like number 57.
I guess you and I can chat about the Bears, dude. Caleb doesn't have shit.
Lads, it's been absolutely brilliant you guys coming on. I really, really do appreciate it. We'll try and get you guys on midway through the season, right? And we'll see if we can somehow find a Viking.
Yeah, no. I mean, what is your concern? I think with Bears fans, and he can talk to this if he pops on, my issues in the offseason, they've always said, oh, they have the best surrounding cast. And as soon as it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, he had no help. He had no coaches. This year it's the same. It's like every year it's the same thing. It's they have everything in place, and when the quarterback doesn't follow through, it's like, well, it's not his fault. It's everybody else's fault. And I don't think Caleb can process the game fast enough. I think he has the talent. I just don't think he can process the way that he needs to really take them. Hey, pal, we weren't talking about the Bears at all.
If we had a scenario where he had Brent Johnson last year, and if the same Caleb shows up the same this year that was there last year in big sack numbers, in holding onto the ball in certain spots. But I think where we've got the likes of Coward talking crap, and we've got some other national media talking about he can't process it, he can't do this, he can't do that. I think that was done under a head coach who was a defensive head coach who did not want to go up the football. That was his only job. Man, it was his only thought process, don't give away the football. So he was unbelievably reserved and unbelievably scared and played offensive football scared. What he has now, in my opinion, he's got an offensive coach who is a very, very good offensive play caller. Whether he's a head coach or not, we don't know, but he's a very, very good play caller. He's got all the weapons around him. He's got a running back coach who's a very good coach, an offensive line coach who's a very good coach. He's got a defensive coach who should have a good defense on the field. So it is getting to a situation where if at the end of the season we're asking the same questions as Bears fans again about those same problems, then it is about the quarterback again, and that's back to on the carousel we get. I think
That's
there's
fair.
hints.
That is fair. I mean, with the new play caller, maybe getting the ball out of his hands faster I mean, that does have something to do with it, but that just kind of seems like, based on stats last year, 3.46 to release the ball, stuff like that. It's just maybe that was just coming from the play calling. So that makes sense. So I'm going to give him a chance, dude. I always want to not be worried about the quarterback on the other team, but I'm not worried about you guys right now until I see it.
Well, just I'd say that Caleb is 1-0 in Lambeau. That's all I'm going to say. And he's lived. He's unbeaten in Lambeau. Lads, it's been absolutely brilliant having you guys on. Definitely must get you back. Must get you back mid-season, so we can talk about what it is. Bruce, Michael, thank you so much. Lads, anyone want to listen to Bruce involved? Bruce, what's your podcast, my man? Got to ask you that. You get involved with podcast?
No, I had a podcast back in the day, man, but my job and dad duties it was called Packers Without Borders. I did that for about 3 years. But at this point, I am just full-time in my coffee shop and taking care of kids, man. That's what I do.
Well, anyone that's around your area, make sure I'll put a link onto where your coffee shop is and get people to see if they can jump in you. Michael, what are you doing? Are you writing anymore? Are you staying on your own, relaxing yourself?
Follow me on X. Yeah, let's talk football. Let's talk crap in a friendly way. And happy NFL season, everybody.
Folks, thank you very much. Next week, we have the Irish Bears podcast again, or the Bears Down Abroad podcast again. So what we're doing next week, we've got a crossover with another Bears fans from a different podcast. That should be entertaining. And Tony might even show up. That would be fantastic if he did. To everyone out there, enjoy your weekends, enjoy your time, and fun for the two lads, even though they don't like it. Bear down.